I am tying Ed Story's FC Crackleback on a number 14 hook. It's a dry fly hook, although he says that you can fish this fly either as a dry fly or as a wet fly. Just kind of use it the way it catches fish best. If you want to fish it as a wet fly, you don't put any floatant on it and let it sink and then skip it through the water below the surface with your flicks of your tip of your fly rod. I'm going to try to tie this with the colors that he recommends or suggests or has in the recipe in his book, Missouri Trout Flies, How to Tie and Fish Them. So black thread, I'm using Furnace Hackle. So Furnace is this brown hackle that's got that black stripe down the middle. And what I've done is I've peeled away fibers on the bottom of the butt end of the hackle feather and more on the top side than on the bottom side, so that when I wrap, try to avoid getting a tail. Although it probably doesn't hurt if this fly has a tail, but it's not originally developed or tied with a tail. So Ed Story developed this fly back in the mid-1950s after a lot of fishing and practice, and it's one in a series in his fly tying manual of woolly patterns. The top of the fly has 2 Peacock herl. So I want to make sure that I keep those 2 herl on the top of the shank. So I'm holding them a little bit to the front here, trying to anyway, as I wrap back onto them. Then I am going to be using a light olive dubbing, which is the color that is in the recipe in his manual. Although it's not the only color that he used, and it's not the only color or the only material that is used on this fly. There are a lot of variations, colors and material. There's actually a video out on the internet of Ed Story tying this fly, where he uses the fibers from a white turkey for the body. I'm also not following the instructions in the manual for how he gets the dubbing on his thread, because he used a different kind of dubbing. He used a long fiber dubbing, and he had a particular method that he developed using a hackle plier to spin the dubbing onto the thread. So I'm just doing a regular, putting the dubbing on the thread by spinning it in one direction with my thumb and finger. Then I'm going to take this herl and lay it up over the top of the body, and I'm going to cheat it just a little bit forward. Pinch wrap that. Because I've found that when I wrap the hackle, there is a tendency for the herl to push back along the backside rather than stay on top. So I'll keep the herl on top, cheat it a little bit to the front, and not much, just a little bit. Tie it in, clip that off. Then as I wrap the hackle, I want to make sure that I am keeping the shiny side back, and I got a little bit of a tail there anyway, I guess that's all right. the shiny side towards the back of the hook and the dull side forward. So what happens when I do that is that the fibers will lean forward in what I'm calling a reverse palmer. And then it's loose or wide spirals according to Ed Story's instructions, because you want to keep that herl visible. Others who tie this fly suggest that if you want a floatier fly, you tie a tighter spiral. You want a fly that you're going to fish more as a wet fly, you tie a wider spiral, a more sparse spiral. So catch that hackle feather in, tie it off, clip it out. And then he does call it the FC Crackleback, and FC would be for Feathercraft, which is the name of his company and fly shop in St. Louis, Missouri. He is no longer with us, but his son now owns and operates the business. In the video where he ties this fly, he does a 5-wrap whip finish. I'll just do a few wraps. I didn't even count how many I did. Clip out the thread, and then I am going to put a little bit of head cement on, and I'm using a diluted goop. I have a needle that I just stick in my jar that grabs a drop, and I can just touch that drop to the head, and it'll soak in cement in that knot. So the FC Crackleback from Ed Story's Missouri Trout Flies, How to Tie and Fish Them.